Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to be looking at the last theme deck from Prophecy, which is Turnaround, which is a white and blue deck. So let's dive into looking at it. So we have a deck list here, 26 creatures, which is a lot, and then 5 instants, 4 enchantments, 1 sorcery and 24 land, and a mana curve off to the side there as usual. Let's look at some of these creatures. So I'm not really kind of sure really to pin down what the theme of this deck is. It's kind of standard white-blue control, but we'll look into it a bit more as we look through these cards. So first row of the deck is Magita the Lion. This guy's pretty good, I think. So he's 5 mana, 3/3. He's a legendary spell shaper. So spell shapers are a thing that've been through the whole block. So it's really nice that the block ended on these legendary ones who replicate kind of really big, powerful, iconic spells. So Magita the Lion, 2 colours, 2 white, tap him, discard 2 cards, and he basically does Wrath of God, except he doesn't destroy himself, which is nice. So that's really powerful, just to add the repeated ability to kind of sweep the board all the time. Yeah, he's just really cool. Good rare to include, I think. Some other white creatures, we have Chieftain Endal, who's 3 mana for a 2/2. Whenever he attacks, gives all attacking creatures first strike turn 10. That's pretty good as well, I'd say. Fairly costed, I think, for that ability. A Defiant Vanguard, who is 3 mana for a 2/2. Whenever it blocks, end of combat, it and all creatures it blocked are destroyed. So that makes him obviously like really good blocker, can take down kind of anything. He also has a recruitment ability because he is a rebel. So the rebel theme is still going through Prophecy like a little bit. Not as much as it was in Masks or Nemesis, but still okay to have this kind of recruitment theme. And one of the rebels that you can get is Reveille Squad, who I think has been a deck before that we've looked at, but yeah, I think these guys are pretty good as well. 4 mana for 3/3, and whenever you're attacked, if they're untapped, then you untap all your creatures. So it's kind of pseudo vigilance. But I think that's okay. Like these are all okay creatures. Then a few that maybe aren't so great. So you have 1 copy of Crossbow Infantry. I don't know why there's only 1 copy. This is something that could have benefited from multiples of. So 2 mana for a 1/1, tap it to do 1 damage to an attacking or blocking creature, which is an ability which I think Magic R&D call Range Strike sometimes. It's not really an ability I think we see that much anymore on creatures. Normally it's on white combat tricks, but yeah, it's a little underwhelming, but it's serviceable, it's fine. Diving Griffin is a 2/2 with Flying and Vigilance for 3. That's fine. 2 of those. Perfectly average vanilla creature. 2 Glittering Lions. So this is 3 mana for a 2/2, and you prevent all damage that would be dealt to it. But because it is a creature from Prophecy and usually has a horrible drawback, this has 3 until end of turn. Glittering Lion loses prevent all damage that would be dealt to it. Any player can play this ability. So we've covered this a lot looking at the Prophecy themed decks, but just a lot of creatures have these really horrible drawbacks where they have like these kind of symmetric effects, like your opponent can pay a cost to take away abilities for a turn. Without that drawback, it would actually be a pretty good creature, I think. 3 mana for a 2/2 that can't be dealt damage. But yeah, with it, it's just, I don't know, it just makes it too unreliable. Like your card doesn't do what you want it to do, which just kind of feels bad. And you would just play, I think, something over this. And then there's 2 Mind Bearers, which are 3 mana for a 1/1, which is a pretty horrible rate. And has tap, sacrifice it, destroy an attacking creature. So you just kind of leave that out there, and like your opponent knows it's coming, I suppose, at some point. So I mean, they can always play around it, but yeah, I think that's a little expensive, and it doesn't work as a combat trick, just because it works as a deterrent, but opponents will just sort of play around that. One small annoying thing is that like I don't like that it can destroy things with flying. That doesn't make much flavourable sense, but that's such a small quibble. And then we have 2 Trap Runners. This is 4 mana for a 2/3, and it taps to make an unblocked creature blocked. This is like a really weird ability, honestly. It honestly could just be like target attacking creature doesn't do any damage this turn, something like that. I don't know why they had to make this weird, like, if it, I don't know. I just don't understand why it was templated this way. But again, like, fine card, I guess. It's, average. 3 Shield Dancers. So this is 3 mana for a 1/3. And has an ability, 2 colours and 1 white. The next time it would, an attacking creature would deal damage to it. That creature deals that damage to itself instead, so it kind of like bounces damage off of it back onto the creature it's blocking, which makes it again like a pretty strong blocker. Quite a lot of good blocking creatures in this deck. Like it would be pretty good on defense, I feel, because you got this, you got the Reveille squad, you got the Defiant Vanguard. So yeah, just like a pretty good selection of like defensive creatures and like the trap runner as well. And also Sword Dancer, who is 2 mana for a 1/2 and has an ability 2 white. Target attacking creature gets -1/-0 to end turn. That's a little expensive for that ability. Yeah, that's not much to say about that. That's just kind of like a little disappointing as a card, honestly. It does annoy me actually that he has like an anti-synergy with Shield Dancer, because I think they're meant to be like a mirrored pair, but they don't really complement each other at all. Just a little disappointing. Then we have some blue creatures. So we've got 3 Ribbon Snakes. This is kind of the same as Glittering Lion. It's a creature with an ability and kind of okay costed for its, or it's, it's a little, I don't want to say it's very efficient, it's just okay for its cost. 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer. But again, your opponent can pay mana to make it lose flying until end of turn, which is, it's just disappointing. We have 2 Waterfront Bouncers, so it's another Spell Shaper. One of the better Spell Shapers because it does unsummon for only a single blue. I just think that's pretty good. Just 2 of him. He's shown up in a lot of these blue theme decks in the block, and yeah, I just think just pretty solid. 3 Spiketail Hatchlings. These guys are pretty great. So this is 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer, and you can sacrifice it to counter a spell unless its controller pays 1. So just kind of again like this nice deterrent of being able to leave it on the board, and your opponent's always got a plan to like have to pay the extra 1 because they don't know if you're going to sacrifice your Drake for it. And also it doesn't hurt that it's a 1/1 flyer, so it's just a bit evasive. So yeah, and also there's 3 of them, which is really nice. Always nice when a theme deck gives you 3 or 4 of a card. I always think that's a good thing. And then a single weirdo Stronghold Machinist, 1/1 Spell Shaper for 3, 2 blue, tap, discard a card, counter a non-creature spell. Yeah, that's good as well. A little expensive to get it on the board, but then it's just a hard counter for non-creature spells. Turn any card in your hand into negate, basically, which is pretty good. And then we have a few more counter spells. So you have 1 foil, which is 2 cards, 2 blue, counter a spell, but you can discard an island and another card from your hand instead of paying its mana cost. So just having a free counter spell is really strong, especially when it's a hard counter like this. Daze is a card I never thought was that good back in the day because I was young and kind of inexperienced, and nowadays I look at it and be like, man, that's incredibly good. So it's 2 mana. You can return an island you control to owner's hand instead of paying its mana cost, which is really good. So again, it's free. You could tap out, and even if opponent casts a spell, you've got the option of just bouncing an island back to your hand to counter it, and it is only counter target spell unless they pay 1. But again, if they're perfectly on curve, they don't have that extra mana floating around. Yeah, it's good, and I mean just the fact it's free makes it really good. And Rethink is a spell that I don't think has maybe gained as much popularity as Foil and Daze has in later years following this set. It's 3 mana, counter target spell unless its controller pays X, where X is the spell's mana value, which is that's all right. I'm wondering at sort of at what point this sort of becomes worth it. I mean, I guess if it just counters the spell outright, then it is worth it. But I think if you're spending 3 mana on a counter spell, you want to be using this on stuff that costs 4 or more, because ideally you don't want to be spending more on a counter spell than your opponent is spending on their spell. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I think Rethink is just kind of average. Then we have some white utility spells. Got 1 disenchant. Everyone knows what disenchant does. 2 topples, which is 2 colours and a white and a sorcery. Exile target creature with the greatest power from the game. That's quite strong, I think. You might have to jump through a few hoops. If this was instant, I think that'd be really, really great because you could do that in response to like a pump spell or anything. But yeah, that's okay. And then Rhystic Shield. This one, the Rhystic spells. We've talked about the Rhystic spells. They they make me angry because I think they're really badly designed. So this is 1 color and 1 white to give your creatures +0/+1 till end turn, which is not very good at all. But they get an additional +0/+2 until end turn, unless any player pays 2. Yeah, I mean, it just makes your stuff like that's a fairly average toughness boost. Yeah, that's just a weak card with a equally weak mechanic. So yeah, definitely take that out. Then we have some enchantments. So we have Heightened Awareness. This is the other rare of the deck. So 3 colors, 2 blue enchantment. As it comes into play, you discard your hand. It's not an additional cost, which is nice. And then at the beginning of your draw step, you draw a card. So you're basically then drawing 2 cards every turn. So that's okay. You could like just dump out your hand, then cast this, or cast it when you've got stuff you don't mind losing, and then 2 cards a turn. That's all right. But what's more interesting is Rhystic Study. So this is the best Rhystic Study. 2 cards in the blue enchantment. This is a card that is very popular these days, especially in Commander. Enchantment: whenever an opponent plays a spell, you draw a card unless they pay 1. So I would struggle to call it a Rhystic spell just because it doesn't follow the same formula as the others. Just because like this is something that's giving you something automatic and it's sort of taxing opponents, whereas the other Rhystic spells don't really do that. Like this gives you, it's hard to explain. This gives you benefit from your opponent doing something, whereas all the other Rhystic spells, are a downside if your opponent does something, I guess. But you can just put this down. It requires like no investment, and it just essentially taxes your opponent 1 extra mana per spell they cast, unless you want to draw a card. And it is absurd to me. This used to be a common, and it's like so good. It's just it's definitely I think the best card in Prophecy. I would say. But yeah, only 1 of those. But I say it was common, so if you were buying lots of Prophecy at the time, you probably would have had more of these and added them in, and you probably would have done very well. And then we have a Rhystic Circle. I keep changing between Rhystic and Rhystic. So 2 colors and 2 white, and it's just a circle of protection that has the awful Rhystic ability, so you can prevent damage unless a player pays to not let you prevent damage. It's just not very good at all. And then Seal of Cleansing, which is an enchantment. You can sack it, does disenchant. It's fine. We've talked about the seals a lot. I think they're okay. So it could have been. Overall, I think this deck's actually pretty well put together. It wins a lot of points just because it has Rhystic Study. There's a few cards in there which are kind of duds. So I guess what the theme of it is you want to make your opponent like kind of overextend and pay their mana to stop your effects, so they then don't have mana to cast their spells, and kind of put them in this tricky situation of having to decide whether they're going to do their own spells or just hold on to their mana to react to your own things, and kind of wearing them down that way. I'm guessing that's kind of what the intended theme is. So in that regard, we've got Excise, which is it's exiles an attacking creature unless the controller pays X. Sunken Field. Sunken Field's actually pretty good for 2. It's 2 mana aura, goes on a land, and Enchanted Land has tap counter target spell unless its controller pays 1, that's quite a strong effect. And again, I think sort of fits in with the intended theme of the deck. Spiketail Drake is just a grown-up Spiketail Drakeling. It's 3/3 flyer for 5, and he sacrifices to counter a spell unless they pay 3. Rhystic Deluge is an enchantment that taps creatures down unless the controller pays 1, so again, just kind of wearing someone down by making them spend all their mana to stop these effects. And then Withdraw is just a bounce spell, gets 1 creature, which for 2 blue is not awful, and then unless an opponent pays an extra 1 mana, you can bounce another creature. So potentially bouncing 2 creatures for only 2 blue mana and 1 card is quite good. So yeah, I'm guessing that's what the theme is. You have to make your opponent make these tough decisions of how they're going to use their mana. So in summary, I think this one's probably the best one out of the Prophecy theme decks. I still think it could be better, but like I think it's definitely like leaps and bounds ahead of the other 3. So yeah, that's just what I think, and just the fact it has Rhystic Study and Megita the Lion. Those are like 2 kind of fun cards. Nothing in this deck really feels like nothing feels like a dud card. It feels okay. Like based on the card pool they had to draw from, I think it's doing the best of a bad job basically. Yeah, even though the theme is a little, I'm guessing that's what the theme was. They say to tap mana, but anyway, that's what I think. Did you have this deck? Did you play it? What changes did you make to it? I'd really like to know, so stick a comment below. But I will be back next time. We're going to be starting on the Invasion block theme decks, so that's exciting. We got a whole new card pool to look at, so really looking forward to that. Invasion is a set that's quite near and dear to me, so I'm going to have a lot of fun looking at those. But yeah, until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a great day.